Hello there, and hang on, I want to send out another shout out on my brand new Discord, which I need to add to YouTube. Sorry about that, but I'm going to do that right now. I've already sent one, but hey, we're going to do another one. Now, come join. Okay. So, if you ever watch the streams at all, like someone asks, are older games relevant? And that got me thinking about this conversation topic off and on, and I just want to give my untrained thoughts to that, I guess. Untrained thoughts. That doesn't make any sense. You know, like, um, I don't know enough about games to be relevant, but I thought I'd give my 2 cents to that, see if I can come up with something that, why I think that games are, any game is relevant, you know, to a certain extent. I think some games are more relevant than others. For example, I was thinking of Super Mario Brothers. Some people say old games just don't come up with games that are now, games that are like have like complex mechanics. You know, they're allowed to do more with the technology, which is true, but I don't think that means older games are not relevant. I think that's a dumb argument because every game is relevant to some reason. Like, for example, I'll think of the first Super Mario Brothers. Whenever I think of, is that game irrelevant? No, not by a long shot. It revolutionized the way games are played, the way games are viewed, and got started the next video game boom, pretty much. And it's because of Super Mario Brothers that it actually, um, when the crash happened in the 80s with the arcade machines, it 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 pretty much rose from the grave, at that point because of that game. And it has varying difficulties that goes along with it called progressive um, difficulty. Basically, each stage has, like for example, 1-2. Even though it's not that much harder than 1-1, it still gives a different obstacle, a different area. Has and it gives a different feel than the first one because it's an underground one, and then you go through the basic water level. Pretty much gives you the four basic levels. What the with ruled 1-1, 1 through 4, 1-1 to 1 through 4, and then it progressive gets harder and harder and harder. Having 8-1, like we're gonna throw everything at you that you've learned, and then combine them all together to make sure you don't make it to the end. You know, it does because it's not really a difficulty spike. Because you've dealt with these things all the time, but now it's dealing with these things on a consistent basis, less coins, to make sure that you don't make it through by just gathering coins. This is why I think that it's a great thing that you can't just backtrack in the stage to get more coins. If you miss the coins, well, that's your fault, basically. Man, it's a well designed game, and it's actually the template for platformers at the time, and it's still the template for platformers today. This is why if you ever watched an AVGN episode, anyone who grew up with platformers, anybody knows that this is the way they're made. This is the structure in which you build, which you build your game building on. If you mess with that, if you mess with that control scheme and the weight and whatever, you're doing something initially wrong with what you're trying to do. Because people want to be different but sometimes different isn't always good when it comes to video games. Um, and what I don't know what older game I can really think of that's not relevant because well, what does relevancy means? Relevant is it could be interpreted as a number of ways. What's in the public eye? What you remember? What do you think holds up the most through time? Let's. I think that most relevant games that in the public eye is something I actually something I want to cover, try to cover first because that's usually the AAA, games and stuff like that. And um, if you're trying to put that out there, you need to advertise, you need it in the public eye, and if it seems to work well when it's mechanics, then it seems relevant. For example, I do love The Last of Us, the first one, and it's a great story, great game that's built upon the structure of Uncharted. But even that game, it may seem relevant at the time it was made, and it seemed like people were just, oh my gosh, it's so good. Like it's that kind of story and that kind of action had been done before in another game. It's just it didn't get the AAA hype train, and it didn't have all the crisp graphics and all that stuff. And like that's happened before, you know. Even Uncharted itself is a lot like, The Last of Us is a lot like Uncharted, just a lot more, action is downplayed, and has forced in stealth mechanics. uh, I can't think of an example of how it's done before, but it has been done. You could go through gaming history and realize, oh, this has been done before. Which is why there's a thing called when something is not in the market of video games, they don't seem relevant until they come out. For example, Octopath Traveler, when it came out, people are like, "This is really good," or maybe it's not as good as it wants to because it's a typical JRPG sort of thing. The reason why it got so much success and everyone was looking at it and thought it was relevant is because there hasn't been mainstream push for JRPGs at the moment. And because we live in internet age, it's a lot easier to get your information out there about this game, and people were just biting at the bit for something different. I'm not saying to just accept it because it's been sparkly. I'm sure it's good. I haven't played it, but it's sort of like when people are craving something that's different because AAA always goes with, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And then then that thing they don't want to fix becomes that dead horse. So that means relevancy is in the public eye. That's sort of how it works. It's kind of like business 101. Sorry. Take a drink off that rant or whatever. It's not really a rant. Then there's sort of a history sort of relevance. It's sort of like a great example is Doom. Doom is a game that's relevant all the time because it basically holds this spot in history because it does something really well, and that's fast-paced action, good enemy placement, and you know what those enemies do. You're never confused about what the enemy does. As I was watching the other channels explain it this way, where basically Halo took their inspiration from Doom. Basically, you're never confused about what the enemy does. The enemy is very simple, but if you combine it with other enemies of different types, it becomes harder and harder to beat the game. And at the beginning, you start with the simpler enemies to introduce them, then you slowly introduce other enemies with those enemies, and then introduce a new enemy, maybe surrounded by simpler enemies. The more complex they are, the more complex they fight. But because it's complex doesn't mean they're not simple. The same thing could be said for, I think a great example of that is Devil May Cry 3. Devil May Cry 3 is mechanics is every enemy has a way it attacks, and it's very simple. They have sound cues, they have movement cues, and it's but there's so many of them, is that you don't know what's going on, and it's tough to keep up. It's a very cool sort of way to make sure you're never really you're surely outnumbered, but you're never outnumbered in an unfair way because you need to pay attention to what the enemy is doing. Um, and if you know what the enemy is doing, then you could just get out of the way very quickly. Uh, it's um, it's a very good example of taking the structure from Doom and transferring it into a beat 'em up. This is why I got so good at Devil May Cry 3 because I knew the enemy wasn't going to surprise me. It's just that so much is going on that you will eventually have to get good at the game. So let's see. Another one of it. I don't know if relevancy is can also be turned into a negative thing as well. I forgot what I said before about the three things of relevancy because I'm just going off what's in my mind. so, so what happened is that whenever a game comes out that's saying it's really hard, it's the Dark Souls of this. That's what that is, and they're like, oh man, the Dark Souls of this game, like Crash Bandicoot came out, it's a Dark Souls of platforming. And I'm like, I guess Dark Souls is relevant to the hard, difficult. Even though like people who, call it the Dark Souls of this, have never played Dark Souls, and don't know that its difficulty is not because it's difficult. It's because it was made in a way to punish the player. That's why it's difficult. It has nothing to do with the game itself. For example, if you die on a boss, you go right back to the bonfire which you last rested. And if you don't learn, it's your fault. So this is why it's difficult, but it's fair difficulty. And I think they try to push that into other games. But yeah, that's why that game is relevant. That's why Super Mario Brothers is relevant. And that's why Doom is relevant. So these older games are actually very relevant. And just because there's another game that skips doesn't mean those games are irrelevant. Like the unknown games that you never play doesn't mean they're not relevant. It just means that you've never heard of them because they don't push them into the mainstream light or doesn't get referenced as much. There's a lot of gems that people don't play. I don't know what else to say. I wish people would give me like their stories of games. Hold on, let me check something. If I'm being like blocked, I hope not. Hello? Oh, okay, good. Oh, good. I'm being heard. Good. That's good enough. so, So I was playing the messenger when someone said, "Are you think this game is relevant?" And that confused me for a minute because I was like, "Is he talking about Metroidvanias are relevant right now?" Because it seemed to be that was everywhere at the moment. Because like there was Hollow Knight. What was it? Ritual of the Night or whatever. That's the Castlevania one. A Bloodstained, Messenger, Blasphemous. All these Metroidvania type games they're just coming out like crazy. And so those games were the relevant ones for a while. And I'm like, Is the old style games relevant? Well, the reason why Metroidvanias were getting such traction is because Konami wasn't making Castlevania games anymore. Instead, they were putting them into um, pachinko machines. And so the creator was like, I'm going to work on a game called Bloodstained and have a crowdfunding for it. And so therefore, people were copying this 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 formula, of like, oh, people are really into Metroidvanias from the backlash we're getting off of Konami's success. I think people left, and so they were in the spotlight for a while, but now I think that's died down. I don't know what's relevant in the AAA scene right now. I'm trying. I still think it's probably shooters. Like looter shooters was big, and and in those recently with the Borderlands, and that's the only one I could think of, and Crackdown, and I don't know if that's a looter shooter. See what I mean? Like I don't really pay attention to trends. That's why I don't know much about like what's relevant, because I don't know what trends are. I don't know. I don't listen to trends. I'm kind of like I just play whatever I play. I just remember that like when Call of Duty came out, oh man, it was like it termed it had the term Halo killer. You know, that was something. I remember like when I was my friend had an Xbox and he was like Halo was great, and then he played Call of Duty. It's like Call of Duty is killing Halo, and I'm like, oh, that was finally. Hey, Xenosid. I'm not really doing a stream. I'm talking about because sometimes I do topics for people to just absorb information in the background, and this is the only way I can do it. Is to have this blank screen, like because 2K doesn't let me stream Bioshock, so I use it as a background for doing conversation topics. I'm trying to see if games are relevant because I have no technology background whatsoever. This is the best way I can do it as a share feature because I suck at technology. So I don't know, like, when is a game irrelevant? I got distracted by myself. That's okay. I was sort of thinking of back in my Jim Sterling viewing, back when I thought he was a decent person. He would talk about like we need to get these asset flips off Steam. Like we don't need this on this marketplace, like mocking up with garbage and all that stuff. I'm like, well, I guess those games are irrelevant. But then I started to think about it. Everyone can learn from a bad example. And if you were to play one of these asset flips, it would actually make you appreciate a real game or a hidden gem game or like even a AAA game. It's like, wow, this plays like a dream. Why do I make and because man, I've seen some of those asset flip games, and I'm like, why is that mountain clipping into the mountain, and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they just put like random ones everywhere. Like I watched that what was that, like the one that got him sued for $1 million. Oh my gosh, if you haven't seen that one, it's amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, you can learn from a bad example. That's remain relevant, or you could do it as a meme game time. Like get a bunch of Steam games that are bad and play them and have a good time and laugh at them. Like even like one of the worst games that's actually I think relevant is that biker game that was so bad I can't. Road to Hell Retribution. Yeah, that's it. The one where you have sex with closed closed people. I'm like, how are they doing it? It's just a bunch of clothed people. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's fantastic. Uh, but still, that game remains an infamy. Why? Because it's deemed to be so bad that this is an example of what not to do, and that's why it's also relevant. Same thing happens with E.T. E.T. was deemed so bad that people are like, we're going to bury them outside in Nevada desert and have people look it up. Everything has a history behind it, and that's why I agree with people who are the customer is always right when it comes to video game buying or never pre-ordering is because I agree with those people more. Yeah, because let these games stand on their own on Steam or any marketplace whatsoever. Let them be on the shelves for people to buy. They won't get very many sales. But some people will buy them, some people make fun of them, make fun of them. Some people buy them for reviews and tell people they're bad. But that's about it. And those sales won't do anything. And I'm walking around. Excellent. I need another drink. So, is a game irrelevant anytime? I don't think so. Because you can go back to the very beginning of it, it's like Tennis for Two. That's interesting to sort of picture at one time, and it seems like that's even that's not totally irrelevant because it has history behind it. So I can't think of it as completely like. I wish someone give me an example of a unrelevant game, because I can't think of one. I cannot think of one, because each game has its quirks, each game has its flaws, each game has its best moments. Even I'm that guy who every day doesn't like Devil May Cry 5 a little bit more, because it's really not that interesting to play. But it's so fun. I don't know, it just seems like it's not as good. I don't know, it just, like, I don't know. But even that's relevant to people today who want to do that stuff. Huh? When it's forgotten. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you do have a point. It could be forgotten about. But even then, like, if it's forgotten, then I guess it remains irrelevant. Or is it just because it fell out of favor? What was that game that tried to take over Overwatch in the Battle Royale series? What was that? That one where everyone's trying to break out of prison. I forget what that game was, because it's like, yeah, you're a failure, because it shows that it's relevant because it chased a fad, and it decided to go. Fallout 76 is kind of relevant because it tried to chase a fad that was 10 years too late. Oh man. At least almost. Yeah, that's true. Like, it's true. It's sort of like the games that fell into the abyss, and people. This is why I like channels that bring up gems. And like, oh yeah, I remember that game. Like there's this game called Red Asphalt. Red Asphalt is a terrible racing game, but it has so much character and dumb stuff in it that it's actually a good time. It's a death race thing where you try to kill other drivers, and it has so much dumb charm. It acts like what was it? It takes itself too seriously that it becomes funny. It's so edgelord. It's so great. People should look that gameplay up. It is fantastic. Uh, when things are forgotten about in the abyss. I don't know what game is forgotten about. Like the first Ratchet and Clank is, I think, mostly irrelevant because it has a remake and a better game that came after it and off the original. Like it is, yeah, it is not good. But it is the starting point, so it's relevant in that way. See, no matter what, I could think a game is relevant no matter what game it is. Um, One of the games that uh, I was thinking about when it comes to how bad it is was what was that Dragon Ball Z 2 player game by the I'm trying to think of it. It's not Battle of Z. I didn't like that. Well, that because it was advertised differently. It's not a fighting game. It's a group strategy game. Uh, what was that? It wasn't Legacy of Goku. It was I can't think of it, man. Oh my gosh, like uh, it's a really like old game that they had you play like it was a beat 'em up, and you could do it with two people. Oh, man, I forgot that game. But still, it went to sell. So yeah, I was like, eh. Still, that game is really bad. I can't remember it. It must be relevant. No, it's not. No, I don't know. I should say there's I should say there's a difference between irrelevancy and probably purpose. Because if it misses its purpose, then it could be irrelevant as a bad example. And if it completes its purpose, it's irrelevant because it succeeded. I don't know. I'm just bouncing ideas off the wall now. I think I've ran out because this idea that like it's not relevant at the moment doesn't mean it's not relevant. That's I think that's a ideological fallacy of some kind. Like it's like people who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, sort of thing going on. Um, where it's like people think it's a new idea because it came out on their platform. I was like, not really, no. Just because it happened on your platform doesn't mean you know, it's new and fresh. Maybe you just forgot about that. It's been done before on a platform you're not familiar with. If the market's dry, you'll get new. And someone has an idea. We're like, hey, we haven't done this in a while. Then it makes bank. Sort of like Resident Evil 7 made them a bunch of money, even though Capcom was like, survival horror doesn't make money anymore. Like, how does that make sense when you ported Resident Evil 1 to every single system, and Resident Evil 4 is like, on a Neo Geo somewhere, like it's on everything, So it's like, yeah, I think it does make money, and of course when it came out, it proved them wrong, And then they're like, we're gonna make a Resident Evil 3 remake, Resident Evil 2 remake, and and now they're gonna make Resident Evil 8, which looks pretty good. And I'm like, they're gonna make a oh man, they're gonna make a Demon Souls remake. I can't wait for that. uh, yes, but just because the remake is coming out, doesn't mean the original is dead. The original may have something about it that's better than the new one. For example, I was watching someone play the 1000 coming next year. T1000. As ridiculous as Resident Evil is, they can put like the T1000 in there pretty much, and it would be like, yeah, sure, I can believe that. Something like that never dies. Like the Tyrant or or the guy in the trench coat. You know, it's like, sure, why not? Have something made of liquid ooze. uh, what was I about? Oh yeah, I was watching someone play Halo. Yeah, and from the future. Welcome to the world of tomorrow. From the future, and I'm off track. I was watching someone play Halo, and they were playing the anniversary versus the original, and he says he prefers the original because it has the blood. You know, like there's no blood, so there's no weight to what things are killed before and after. You've been there with the flood and everything. I'm like, he makes a good point, I think. Is, by the way, it was the Act Man, if you don't want to know. Uh, uh, Great content creator. And, he was talking about that. Like, yeah, that does create less weight when you can't see when you can't see what happened just based on the environment. You kind of lose something that these updated graphics don't give you. Like, so that's interesting. That so the old one is still relevant because not only is the old one relevant because you can still see the blood because they allow you to transfer between one graphics to the other all the time, which is I think a cool feature. You know, can't wait for that come to Steam. You know, because I've never played Halo. I would love to play Halo. I've been a PlayStation guy for some years. And I'm on one right now. No, is that why it says Sly Cooper on the top? I'm like, yeah. If you didn't catch on to that. Man. So, yeah. So, that's... If you want to absorb that much as you can, my ideas are just bouncing off nothing now. Because I need to do a topic that I need to go point by point in. Make a point script or something. Because these ones have been just sort of like, I want to do a conversation about this, and boop. I'll just do that, and it ends up being this dumb thing I'm just doing right now. Like, I'm not ashamed to make a script. Scripting is good. It means your ideas can have focus, which I need to have. Yeah, Resident Evil 1000. Resident Evil 1000 is a sort of that joke of an Airplane 2 when they had like Rocky 36 on a poster in the background. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. I mean, they just made Creed, so it's like, yeah, they're not far off. Scripting is scripting is great. Scripting is great. I have done a few scripts in the past when I've tried to do like boss rankings. So yeah, I need to do another one of these. I'm just bouncing ideas off the wall. Like poof, there it is. Like I did one for the worst things in Dark Souls. Like yeah, it's a fair game, but those teleporting the guys in the beginning, I hate them. I hate them. Oh man. I thought about making a boss guide to Hollow Knight, but it's gonna end up being like, this is what it is right here. I can just do all the bosses right here. But I don't know. Who knows? I will clip that. I'm glad I'm on Twitch so I can clip stuff. You know, it's great. I'm just trying to fill out time now. That's all I'm doing. Well, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to talk about when it comes to relevancy of video games because it's just kind of funny because I don't know if the Atari, I don't know if the Atari is relevant, to be honest. Like the Atari went out of business. Like, well, I should say when video game companies run out of business, they don't really go out of business. They sort of split off into other companies, and then those companies go out of business. Then they split off again, and all of a sudden they work for Microsoft, you know, and stuff like that. So they were like my first game was. I'll show you how old I am. Like my first game was Tanks for the Atari 2600. I don't know if we had a 5600 or a 2600. I don't know, but it was Tanks, and that was. I was so scared to play Super Mario Brothers because it's like it has more than one level. That's how advanced it was back in the day. That's it saved gaming. As I said before, it saved gaming. And then, um, I think, okay, I guess I'll submit my position as this when it comes to relevancy because I'm very wishy-washy. But I'll say a game is relevant if something can be taken from it. You can discuss it. If there's some kind of substance to it. If there's not really substance to it, I think it's irrelevant. Kind of like those crap games on Steam, even though you can get it from a bad example, you can get that from a game with structure as well. So those games are irrelevant, meant to be forgotten. Like, never should be, never should have been in a game in the first place. That's my submitted position. Just like my submitted position on pre-ordering is, don't do it. Just wait for reviews. Oh yeah. Pac-Man, yeah. Quick note: Pac-Man was also a game that got a lot of girls into the arcades. It was, and then started Mrs. Pac-Man because of it. That's definitely a relevant game. Yeah, it got because they were missing out on, half the population. I'm like, well, we need to get, you know, we need to get females into the arcade so we can have to spend more money. And bam, Mrs. Pac-Man was made. You know, because of that. Because of that, definitely. Like to say that older games are irrelevant because they don't have modern techniques and modern design. I'm like, yeah, they've done that in the past. In fact, if it wasn't for the game in the past, they wouldn't have a template to do that now. Like that's pretty much what I was saying at the beginning. Like I said before, Doom, for example, Doom, the modern FPS that, one of the, best FPS, like was Titanfall 2, and nobody played that, which is a shame. But it's relevant to as a forgotten gem, and the reason why Doom is relevant because every structure of FPS took it from that, even though sort of like the arena shooter sort of took that spot away from a little while, Doom was the one that said we popularized it. We mainstreamed FPS. And just like Mario mainstreamed platformers. They've I'm not sure a platformer was before like Mario. I don't know. I guess like the one for the Atari, what's it called? Finding the Treasure or whatever. Finding the Bright Man, I guess, was the first platformer. But yeah, or actually like Donkey Kong was the first platformer when Mario had to get up those sideways stairs. The arcade, man, the arcade. Donkey Kong, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, I just thought that. Oh man, I'm just talking about old games now. Uh, it's there's this other game called it's not called Sweet Home, but it was dubbed into that onto an NES cartridge because it never came to North America, or to the West, and it's a JRPG that has horror elements, and it had all the things that Resident Evil would do later on in the 90s. And it like having a safe room and it had potions and had an inventory system, like Resident Evil. It's a lot of survival horror with JRPG elements, and that happened way before Resident Evil. So that means that game is relevant for that reason. Icons of the past did these things with limited hardware, and stuff like that. And with more advanced hardware, you could actually do these things simpler, but I kind of like it when they do it in the older software because it's definitely more impressive. Like music. Oh yeah, it's true. When it comes to music as well, when it comes to video games, there are games that are more relevant because of their soundtrack too. Like you could have a crappy game, but if its soundtrack is excellent, it actually has a lot more staying power than people think it does. I I think Undertale would be as popular, but not if it didn't have that soundtrack. Oh, the blue screen thing is the oh yeah, 181 Gaming. Thanks for joining. The blue screen thing is because 2K doesn't allow you to stream any any Bioshock footage, so they just block it. And since it's silent on the pause screen, I can use it to talk. That's what I do it for, because my technology is crap. So I just go, I'll just use the share feature for this, and that's what I do it for. Yeah, I was just I was talking about relevant video games for a while. I didn't realize it wasn't the same person. Sorry about that. Yeah, I guess you're hearing my voice for the first time after I've done some stuff for you. But yeah, this is low tech stuff. So yes, 2K has it blocked because 2K owns the licensing right to their game, so they won't allow the people to be streaming off of the share feature. But if I had a computer, it wouldn't matter. It's just a PlayStation share feature that doesn't allow it. It's the same thing when you run certain anime games. They don't allow cutscenes, so they'll block it. And then the gameplay resumes, and you could just, stuff like that. That happened in what was the Dragon Ball Z fighting game story. They won't allow you to see cutscenes, so they'll just the gameplay. So yeah, a lot of companies have that. Only the selfish ones. Yeah, I do have my problems with PlayStation. Like paying for online. But whatever. I'm not here to talk about PlayStation. You're getting me off track. So, that's the first time. I'm sorry that Charles' first times have to be a dialogue video. But yeah. So I do this series on YouTube channel called Background Noise, which is basically what this is. I know. But that's why I want to join the PC Master Race, because they don't allow for that. By the way, I'm just joking. It's a joke, okay? It's a joke. It's a joke. It's by zero punctuation. That's where the term zero punctuation did a video about The Witcher, and he used the term PC Master Race and console peasants. And that's funny. So, anyways, when it comes to music, I think Undertale wouldn't be as popular because its soundtrack is so good that it wouldn't be as good without it. Be like, mine is blue because, yeah, obvious. For example, I think most NES games are probably known more for their soundtracks than the game itself. Like DuckTales is kind of generic, but its soundtrack is amazing. Same thing goes for Darkwing Duck. Darkwing Duck has an amazing soundtrack that sounds a lot like Mega Man 3 because it's Capcom, but it has an amazing soundtrack, but it's kind of a mediocre Mega Man clone. So, and that's why it stayed more relevant. By the way, if you want to listen to a really good NES track, go to the ending credits of Darkwing Duck and find it on YouTube and have it loop. It's very good. Oh man. uh, Darkwing Duck was a better show than DuckTales. Fight me on the streets. Fight me on the streets. Um, so this has turned to a different video now. I don't know if I would stay much longer, but yeah. And you get into the Super NES, I think that people like if you know like anything about like soundtracks, you know, like Super Mario World, Super Mario RPG, a bunch of stuff in the Super NES like had a they took advantage of that hardware that Nintendo had, because I don't like the Genesis music that much. But there are some Genesis songs I like what was then Rocket Knight Adventures has a pretty good soundtrack. I do have to think but definitely when like Final Fantasy VI definitely showed me what the music of iconic games is like, you know. Hmm. Oh man, I never played any PC except when we got the except when we got it for like Windows 98. That was something. When we got our internet on the phone line. I will not replicate that sound because I do not want to burst anyone's eardrums. That would be insane. So we got this like we had like a submarine game called Silent Steel. If you know what that is, that you're amazing. It's a choose your own adventure that leads to death because you don't know the way through the game. And it doesn't matter how far you make it. If you make the wrong decision the first disc, you're dead, because that's how adventure games go. But it didn't really have any music, but it definitely had like a, you know, choose your own adventure and sort of feel. And I've never played a game like that. So when it comes to memory, relevant games sometimes goes to what you think is relevant, not what the world thinks as relevant. And that's kind of what I typically think of, because I don't listen to current world events when it comes to games. I'm like, if I like it, I like it. If I don't, I skip it. Like, I don't like open world games unless it's Zelda. Then I'm like, open world games are fun. You know, it really does depend, because when it comes to Zelda franchise, open worldness is fun. When it comes to like other open world games, it feels like busy work. I'm like, why am I getting these towers to locate other stuff for me to do? Yay. I don't like open world games. In fact, when I was doing Spider-Man, I'm like, I really want to play this anymore at the end. I was like, I just want to beat the game. I was having fun, but it's like, I know I'm pretty boring. I like linear games, even though I like Metroidvanias, but even Metroidvanias are guided. It's not like Dark Souls. You know, Dark Souls is actually open world, but it's very linear, like a Metroidvania. You know, it's you can weave your way through the tunnels and find your way. Each location is very unique. It's like learning the it's like learning your neighborhood and shortcuts in like around your neighborhood and knowing your house, and you know, it's like you know where you're going even in the dark. You know, it's that sort of way Metroidvanias are. You know, a good one anyway. Each room should be its own world that you know. You know, But open world is like there's trees here, there's something there, I guess. Like there's nothing over there. I'm like, what's the point? Uh, but whatever. Not all open world games. I'm hashtag not all. But whatever. So man, yeah, I can't think of anything else really, because I think I have my stance on what is a relevant game, what is not a relevant game. Um, I'm glad I have some people like to bounce ideas off of. Thank you guys so much for showing up, because I know it's just kind of boring with looking at nothing and just hearing my voice, but I'm hoping that this leads you to say like, is this relevant to me? Is this relevant to history? Is it relevant to how bad it is or how good it is? You know, does this lead to is the character relevant itself? Is it a do they use the tropes that they use greater or greater? That doesn't make any sense. But are they good? Are they using the tropes in a different way, or if they're using a trope that you've seen before, is the character good enough to use that trope? Like because you use a trope doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. And now I'm going in the character, which would be another one, because I've always wanted to talk about tropes as well when it comes to video games or characters at all, and that's just because people think if you use tropes it's a bad thing, or if you use cliches it's a bad thing. No, it's how you use those things and how you cover it up. You know. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that because I can't really think of anything else when it comes to relevancy. Like I said, I think Mario Brothers is extremely relevant, which is the game I always go to when it comes to relevance. I'm like, yeah, you can say that older games are not as relevant as the new ones just because they have better mechanics of the same game, but without those old ones to go back to, you have nothing. You have nothing to compare it to. You have no level design to go back to and think about. So yeah. So I'll see you guys later, and hopefully this helps someone absorb some tasks they're doing, and that's what I really want to do this for. I like to bounce ideas off other people, have a discussion about different topics of some kind, and yeah. See ya, man. I'm so glad you guys came by. Stay safe out there, and take care.